where you are. As long as you step out of the door, I believe that you are going to observe this astronomical phenomena. I believe when you are out of the door, at your right hand it is going to be the moon, and I also believe that at your left hand it is the March. I'm quite curious about how did you take the photo? What kind of equipment are you using right now? I am using a monophasic camera to take this photo. And I am quite lucky that I have taken this photo right at the position of the moon. I also believe that every single viewer can just take a photo like you. Can you give us an introduction about this astronomical phenomena that is happening today? Because we used to see the two stars circling the moon. So what is the difference this time? Actually, the astronomical phenomena like two stars circling the moon is actually happening quite often as every month. But today, we are actually seeing the Mars and also the Taurus is approaching the moon. Today, we believe that we are seeing that the Mars and also the Taurus is approaching one important star cluster, that is the red star of the Aldebaran. I believe in the December of last year, we have observed the same phenomena. And because at night, as the most of the stars is approaching the sun, so the sun actually blocked the light. I believe at the very beginning of the next month, I believe that we are going to see another important astronomical phenomenon. I think at the beginning of the next month, we are also going to enjoy another important astronomical phenomenon when we are going to see more stars circling the sun. Because at the beginning of the March, actually the sky is going to be clearer, while the stars is going to shine brighter. So since I'm actually exposing my camera, I believe that even if you look into this picture, you will find the Venus. By naked eye, you could only observe half of the moon, the crescent. But actually, if I'm exposing my camera further, you will going to see the moon phase. And currently, we are at the first quarter phase. And in the first quarter phase of the moon phase, we are not going to see the Venus. This do pose an important challenge. But if you are using your phone to take a photo like this, you can include the moon and also the Mars in the same photo. So here I also want to introduce to the dear viewers that for we might not understand the quantum astronomy as you mentioned. Can you explain to us further about the lightness in the astronomical world? I believe the lightness is closely related to the distance. The shorter the distance is, the lighter the sun or the Mars is. So can you introduce us the distance between the Mars to the Earth and also the Moon to the Earth? This is a very interesting question. So please take a notice of the photo that I'm taking right now. I believe the Moon is around 388,000 kilometers, while the Mars is around 500 million to 40 or 4,000 million kilometers away from us. We are in the same solar system, while in the stars of the Aldebaran, it is far away from us. It has a distance of the 65 light years distance from us. We are seeing the star. We are actually observing the image and the light from the star that was starting its journey 65 years ago. I believe the Venus and also the Mars can shoot the light by themselves. They are self-illuminating planets. They are not reflecting the light of the sun. You have mentioned the astronomical phenomena of the Venus together with the moon is going to happen at this month, right? Yes, I believe it is going to happen at the waning crescent phase of this month, because at that time, the moon is going to approaching the new moon phase. I believe the phenomena is going to occur at the dawn time or at the dusk time. So before the rising of the sun, I believe that we are going to observe the Venus. Last year, I still remember when we are approaching the March, the Venus still remains to be the brightest star in the sky. I remember it is about the 10th of the March. I also hope all of our viewers could continue to observe these wonders of the universe like this. You have mentioned that the Mars has a very bright colors. I have a very shallow understanding of the astronomy. Can you give us more introduction of the astronomical background information apart from its lightness? Among all the planets, what is the feature of the Mars?
这个星星呢，刚才您说它是排在全天前20亮的星星。大家如果此刻你在夜晚，
The Aldebaran is a very important and very bright astronomical phenomenon. I think that we are fascinated by the Mars, and sometimes we might overlook the Aldebaran. You might observe that sometimes the brightest star at the night time is the Sirius, and the second bright star is the Regulus, while the Aldebaran is, I think, the third brightest star at night. It is easy to observe at night, and when it is orbiting the universe, we could see all of the different positions of the different stars. If you are observing the starry night on dawn, you will see the moon at its left corner. So I believe the Aldebaran belongs to the star cluster of the Taurus. This is the Aldebaran. You could see the shining star. It is a slippery planet. And if you are connecting the two stars together, it is actually pointing to the two different circles of the Taurus. So I believe the Taurus have different star positions. I believe that we are actually observing these clusters of the Taurus in the year of the ox. So here we could also find a very important supernova cluster. So why do we call it Aldebaran? That is, in Chinese we call it 赑岫。We believe that in the ancient Chinese classics of the astrology, we have divided the star space into 28 clusters. I'm actually pointing to this position, and I could see a small question mark. It is also the star belongs to the cluster of the Taurus. So can you introduce us what is a star cluster? I'm going to draw a star cluster. You will find the Aldebaran is an ever-existing star in the sky, actually in the sun. And in the starry night, there are some of the stardust existing. There are other different stars. Just as the I believe the star clusters is divided into two groups. One is closely connected, while another is loosely connected. For those closely connected star cluster, it is because of the existence of the gravity. And if you can observe it closely, you will find the position of the star actually looks like a question mark. Through your naked eye, I also believe that you could observe the star is lining up like a question mark. In the ancient times, Chinese fairy tales, we call it the 7 fairy ladies of the sun. By our naked eye, I believe it is quite close to the Mars. It can be observed by the naked eye throughout the day. If you have a very well-equipped observing position, I believe that you can observe it throughout the day. I believe that we have different stars or different type of the star clusters. Sometimes you have the spiral star clusters. And for that kind of the spiral star clusters, you will see the stars closely connected to each other or closely dotted together with each other. There are so many different astronomical phenomena that is worth to observe. And sometimes you will also see a lot of different astronomical phenomena. Sometimes I believe that if you are actually observing the star clusters of the Orion, you will find the Orion nebulas. We have so many interesting astronomical phenomena like the supernova. Sometimes we could even predict the happenings of the astronomical phenomena. So how can we predict the different astronomical phenomena? I believe the majority of the astronomical phenomena can be reported. We can have an understanding of the observations of the orbit circles of the moon because
这些呢，大家
we
可以去看
believe
一些
at
天文类
the
的网站
26th
或者
of
是
the
公众
March
号啊，
this
这
year,
些都
we are
可
going
以
to
在上面去
enjoy
查，
some
比
of
如说
the
天之文
full
论坛，
crescent.
然后
I
这个
also
是
believe that
非
if
常
you
专业
really
的
want
一个
to
行业科普的一个
observe the
网站。
astronomical phenomena, you can go to the
当然现在其实
professional
我发现，很
WeChat
多的媒
account.
体
You can follow
对
the
中天
professional
非
WeChat
常非常关
account.
注，然后每个月的时候
I
都
also
会对这些
believe
天
a
象
lot
信
of
息进行
medias
报，然后大家就可以
really
提前的
want
了解
to
到，哎，
report
这个
it,
月接下来
the
会有
actual
什么
happenings of
天文现象
so
出
many
现，
wonders
然
of
后
the universe
到时候去关注
previously
它。
that you
而
can
而
follow
我们其
and
实
to
在我自己看
observe.
来哈，我经常在外面去拍摄星
As a
空嘛，然
professional,
后
from
我
my
自己并不
perspective,
完全是说有
when
天
I
象
am
的时候去
shooting
摄
different
影，然后
when
我
I'm
我
actually
再去拍
taking
星星的
photos,
时候，真的是
I'm
有
not
的时候
only
会有
taking
很多
when
意
there are
想
some
不
of
到
the
的事情
wonders
发
of
生，
the
就哪怕我们现
astronomical
在此刻正
phenomena.
在看画面
I
哈，就
took the
很有可
picture
能，就
even
大家
if
一直关注我们直播的话，就可能在画
we
面中
cannot
会有一颗
predict
星突然划
what
过，
to
然后
happen.
这些就是我们没有办法意料
There
到
are
的
some
一
of
些
the
现象。
stars
然后呢，有
crossing
的时
my
候像我
eyes
我在
when
这个月初
during
的
my
时候去
least
到云南念
expected
湖，当时
moment.
刚好拍到了西昌发射的这个卫星，然后还看到了这个火星，看到了这个火箭发射的一个过程，然后这些都是
I
在我意料之外的。
believe
然后
at
其实
the
每次大家去看星
last
星都
year
会有
in
深刻
November,
气
I
氛震撼
actually
城
went
市
to
里面，大家
Yunnan
此刻我
and
们
went to
现在去看
Niehu.
星空，看到了
By
我们看到一个
and
像
a
熊大
quite
月的
luck,
天下，当然也有
I
可能
observed
你
the
所在的城市
mediocres
也
and
有
I
可
also
能
observe
也
a
有可能看
star
到那
shower.
个，比如说有人造天体过境，像国际空间站过境啊，这些都是有可能看到的。
And
这些
sometimes
呢
you
也
will
可以去
see
查，有的可能
some
是
of the
意料之外的事情。
human-made
现在在
astronomical
在屏幕当
equipments
中，我们
crossing
这
the
个给
sky.
到的画面是月亮嘛？刚给我截到的这个网
This
友有留言，
is
信息说
the
大家都很
moon
关心我们
currently.
现在这个天
I
大
象。
家
believe
大
that
家
we
看
are
一看
seeing
此
some
刻
of
这
the
个地
comments
秀
from
五
the
号
viewers.
和这个火星，不知道在画面里清不清
So
晰？
let's
但是
check
我
the
此刻用这个
aberrance.
肉眼去看的
I
话，
don't know
会发
whether
现
you
这两颗
could
星星其
see
实明
it
显是
clearly.
红色的。
I believe
它和
currently
其他的
by
星星是有一些区
naked
别。
戴老师，
eyes,
有网友
the
在问
此刻画
star
面如
is
果看月亮
turning
的
red.
话，
It is
我肉
very
眼是可以
different
看
star
到
compared with
月
others.
亮上面的环形山的。
I can
但如果大家有
observe the
双筒
moon
望
by
远镜，
my
应该可以
naked
看到
eye.
和我们现在
And
这个直播
if
画
you
面里
have
呈现的
the
那些环形山
professional
应该是可以看得
telescope,
清楚的。
you
戴
can
老师，网友
actually
想问一下
observe
您，说我们
what
用手机
is
拍月
happening
亮
in
的
this
话，比如说
picture.
之前总说华为去拍月亮，我们用手机拍月亮有哪些注意的，或者今天会拍到有跟以往有什么不一样吗？会更亮、更清晰
So
一
we
些
have a
吗？
question from the
大家
online
会关
viewers.
注。
That is, if you want to shoot a photo like this through your Huawei phone, how can you do that? When should we do that?
哎，我看到有网友在提问，就是此刻如何用用这个手机拍？
对，
你说。
I have
网友在
seen
问
the
一下
viewers
怎么样手
asking
机怎么
online.
样去拍月
That
亮？
is, instead of the binoculars, how do they take a photo at this important moment? I cannot hear you. Sorry, can you repeat yourself? I actually highly recommend the viewers to take these astronomical phenomena through the binoculars.
上，一方面有对这个今天晚上这个天文现象的这个关注，还有一方面是我们看到了这个有网友还写说上面有没有嫦娥。
Today we are not only observing these important astronomical phenomena, we do have questions from the online viewers.
嫦娥5号 都在月球上啊。嫦娥5号呢，可能大家会觉
About
得它不是已经
the
返回了吗？但是是因
Chang'e
为
the
它的
third
着陆器现在
orbiters,
还留在月
Chang'e
球
the
正面，
fourth,
所
and
以说在月
also
球的正面
Chang'e
会
the
有我们的
fifth.
嫦娥3号
Their
的着陆器
landers
和
is
虽然已经
still
不
on
工
the
作了，
their
但是
landing
依旧
equipment
留在月球
is
表面的
still
玉兔号、
working
月
on the
车，还有
surface of the
嫦娥5
moon.
号的着陆器。那在月球的背面呢，是我们
And we
世
also
界只
have
有
the
唯独一家，
Jade
是我们
Rabbit.
嫦娥4号的着陆器和玉兔2号的月球车，现在还都正常的在工作。这是我们刚刚回来
I
一下网友
also
当中
believe
嫦娥在
that
里面嘛。
the number
其实
2
刚
of
刚戴
the
老师有讲
Jade
说是
Rabbit
地球
is
是
also
最亮的一颗恒星，
working
也
at
讲
the
过说接下来会有
back
金星的这个
surface
观测，但
of
其
the
实
moon.
还有一点是要跟大家讲，今天还有另外一个
And
主角就是火
I
星嘛。
also believe that we are also
这
going
个
to
这个火
observe
星
the
的观
Venus
测
in
呢，
a short
在
period
过
of
了
time.
这个上半年的这
The
个夏天之
observation
后，
of the
可
Mars
能就很难看得到了。由于这个
is
天文现象的原因，
at
它其实
its
很难用
best
肉眼观测得到这个
before
火星。
the
但是
summer
我们
of
都
this
知道，
year.
现在基本上火星应该是这个天文系里现在是最热闹的一颗行星了。因为今天
We
早
all know
晨的
that the
时候，
Mars
今天
is
凌晨
the
伊利号
hottest
就
and
是美国的伊
hottest
利号
star
火星车已
because
经成功抵
in
达了
this
火星，
morning
这是我们今
the
年第
US
3个
probe
到了
actually
火星的
approached the Mars for the
大国。
first time.
那在
This
这
is
之前
actually
呢
the
，2月
first,
9号的时
the
候是阿
third
联酋的希
explorer
望号抵达了
approaching the
火星
Mars.
轨道。2月10号的时候是我们国家的天文
And
1号
I
探测
also
器
believe
也
the
是被
explorer
火星
Hope
捕获，现在正在逐步的
from
进行轨道调整，
UAE
即将开启它
approach
的这个
the
环绕
Mars,
火星探
while
测
the
的这个过
Chinese
程。那毅力号呢，这
orbiter
个
and
它
also
因
the
为美
Chinese
国之前有过这次
equipment
的
is
探
also
测的经
approaching
验了，
its
加上它在这个
approaching the
中轨
Mars.
道上已经有很多的卫星起提
So
供这样的通
I
信支持，
think
所以它不需
the
要再进行一个
US
环绕这一步，它直
equipment
接
has
就
so many
着陆在了火星
experiences.
表面。
They actually
大概
avoided the
10年以前的
circling
时候嘛，
step
很多这
and
个
they
全
have
世界的航天局都很
launched
关注这一刻，
into
也
the
都
Mars
祝贺它的这
directly.
个成功。当
I
然了，接下来
believe
所有的
in the
期待
morning
都放在
of
了我们国
today
家的天文1号
we
探测器
have
上。
see a
现在呢，
real
想给大家介绍一下天文1号探测器的
landings
一个
of
最
the
新的情况，就
Perseverance
是这个
rover
轨道会
sending
比我
its
们
first two
原本预期的
images
要准确
to
很
the
多。
Jet
最
Propulsion
开始的时候，
Laboratory
其实在
in
捕获之后，
California
年初1的时候是
shortly
规划过
after
这个
its
修正但
landing
是
on the Mars.
捕获的这个
I
精度特别
actually
高，
want to
所以大年初1的
introduce
那
you
些修
what
正就
we
已经取
have
消了。
learned
然后在
today.
大年初4进行了原火点的平面机动。当时我是觉得它这个
I
形态很像是
believe
侧手翻，所以那时候起了个名字
around
叫天文1号即将
4
进
days
行侧手翻。
ago,
然后
the
在大年初1晚上
Perseverance
17
have
点左右的时
started
候
their
是
journey,
成功完顺利完
while
成
for
的。
the Tianwen number
在大年初
1
4结束之后，
explorer,
原本
they
计
have
划应该
finished
是在
their
明天也就
recirclings.
是明天
We
在
have
明天的
planned
时候，其实原
tomorrow
本是计划有一个近火制动，就再次去调整它的轨道到停泊
the
朝向轨道
Tianwen
的。
number
但
2
是
is
呢，
going
因为
to
它的之前的动作都非
readjust
常的
its
标准，
orbiting
可能
circle.
轨道的这个预期也超出了这个准确值也超出了我们的预期，所以现在这个简单的
But
调整
I believe
好
the
像也应该是已经可以
accuracies of the
在做了
current
它可以直接到时
orbiting
候在
is far beyond our
后续择机进
expectations,
行第二次接
and
轨
I
之后调整
believe
到停泊轨
in
道
the
上，就是它
later
中间不需要
days,
再进行
the
简单的
Tianwen
系列
number
调整，
2
而
is
是直
going
接就进
to
入到停泊轨
land
道上。
in the
停
Mars
泊轨道
in
就
a
是我
short
们所说
period
的
of time.
它就会在这个轨道上一直绕着圈儿。现在它那个轨道是一个大的
It
圆
is
大
going
的
to
圆呢，
circle
大
the
概10
Mars.
天吧左右是一圈儿。
Currently, it is circle the Mars in a very big orbit. It is not easy for the Tianwen number 2 rover to start its explorational missions. After 40 circles, that is 3 months, we are going to see the Tianwen number 2 to undertake a series of the missions to circling the Mars and take some of the photos from the Mars. I think at this important moment, after it is orbiting in its regular circle, the major part of its mission is to observe the different surfaces of the Mars. Tianwen number 1 rover is going to be landed on the surface of the Mars.
是根据
there is
历史
main
资料的
landing
整合
area
和国内外资料的一个查找这个和这个我们评估会认为乌托邦平原呢
where
相
the
对地势
engineers
平
and
坦，并且
scientists
这个地方
have
在历史经验上
find
看，在我们选的着陆的时候，
according
它
to
的
the
这个风
historic
尘暴火
data
星上
and
的尘暴
also
是很
the
少的，
data
所以我们
from
选择
China
乌托邦
and
平原作为
abroad.
主着陆区。但是呢，它
That's
具
the
体怎么
reason
样
why we
我们是
find
不知道的，
the
我们只是从
Utopia
资料里面
plateau
解
as
读，
the
所以我们
major
是需要实
landing
地的勘察一下。
area.
所以这3个月
But
每次绕到
for
这
the
个
real
星上的时候，都会
circumstances of
进
the
行一些
landing plateau,
拍照
the
进行一些
Utopia
可以
plateau,
在赫
we
里
are
的探
not
测，
quite
去
sure
确
about
定
that.
第一它的地
I
质情
believe
况，
in the
第二和
coming
它的
3
这个
months,
表面
Tianwen number
会
2
不会有尘
rover
暴发
is
生。
going to take a lot of
其
photos
实对于火
and
星上来
also
说，最大的
to
一个风险
detect the
之一
surface
吧，
of the
就
Mars.
是这个火
Are
星
there
尘暴的这个
any
问题。
sandstorms?
我们之前
One
有了解
major
过，说
risk
我们有
in
没有
the
什么
Mars
方法去
exploration
应对
is
这个
about
尘
the
暴？
sandstorms.
研制人
There
员
are
有跟
some
我
of
们
the
讲，就
questions
是
talking about
我
how
们只
to
能尽可
tackle
能的去保护
against
好自己，
the
然后扛
sandstorms
过。如
on
果
the
真的有
Mars.
尘暴发生
But
了，就是
according to the
扛过这次
researchers,
尘暴，
the only
然后
way
呢，
we
如
could
果
do
是一
is
切
to
都正常，那
protect
就
the
继续探测。
rover
所以
fast
简单来讲，其实
to
这也不单单是我们要面对的问题，全世界的探测器都要面对这样
withhold
的问题。
this
就是火星
sandstorm.
尘暴是非常
I believe the
如
rovers
果是短期的尘暴，
across
它
the
的威力
world
会特别的
also
大。如
actually
果是个长期的
faces
呢，
the
可
same
能频率
sandstorms
不大不高，但是它
in
会
a
一直
short
维
period
持
of time.
所以这个对于探测器
And
的影响是
under
非常
high
的大的。
frequency,
可能会在
the
这个太阳的表
exploration
面积灰。
mission is going
那
to
这个太
happen
阳一不能越来越积灰的话，它对于
sometimes
指向太阳
when
的
the
能源
sandstorm
和
is
它的通
coming.
信链路就会受到影响。
It
所以
is
说
going
火星
to
尘暴是对于
accumulate a
火星
lot
探
of
测上
starry
一个
dust.
比较大的一个风险的一个问题所在。所以我们也是最关注这方面。
This is a very
所以
important
在这
risk
个环绕星
factor
球
for
过程
this
当中会一
mission.
直去关注所在的着陆区
We
会
are
不会有
going
尘
to
暴的情况
continue
发
to
生。
focus
那经过这
this
3个月
part
判断，
to
如
see
果一切
whether
按照
the
预期，
sandstorm
那大概
is
是
going to
在5
happen
月中
after
旬
the
左
3
右的
months
时候，
of the
天
first
文1号就会
exploration.
着陆到火星上。
And the
这个时间是可以
I
找得
think
到
at the
我们
middle
手上
of
的
the
着陆
May,
窗口。如果
the
要是
Tianwen
真的这
number
个情况
2
跟我
is
们
going
的
to
预报
land
是会
itself
推迟的。但
on the
是所有
surface
的
of the
一切都会
Mars.
瞄着第一
Of
这个第
course,
一
the
窗口
time
进行着
can
陆。
be postponed
着陆的这个整个
according
过
to the
程，其实
different
之前在很多的节目当中都给大家介绍过。
background or the
在全
scenarios
世
of
界
the
的范围
Mars.
内，火
I
星着
have
陆过程中会有一
introduced
个
you
黑
how
色七分
Tianwen
钟。
number 2 is
当然
going to
我
land
们国
itself.
家的这个着陆过程会
Across
稍
the
微长
world,
一点儿。
there is what
采
we
取的方
call
式
a
不一样吧，
black
我们可能会
7
在几
mo
分钟左右，但
minutes
是大同小异。
because in
然后
China we are
分别
adopting a
是
different
第
way
一
of
要
landing
面对这个火星西
because
部
we have
相对
divided the
稀薄的
proper
大
and
气，
rover
所以通
into
过大气
3
的
phases.
让它的速
The
度
first
减
in the
少
first
90%左右。
phase, the rover
然
is
后
going
再
to experiencing a
开
very
始进行
thin
降落伞
atmosphere
降
where
落伞的一个
the
缓冲，然后
total
开
air
始
is
开
going
启
to
我
be
们的推
dropped
力
by
发动机，也
90%,
就是
and
和
they
我
are
们
also going to
在
experiencing a
着陆月
buffer
球的过程当中
period
一样的，
where
进
the
行完整的
parachute
变推
is
发动
going
机
to
和开
work.
机，然后进行一个反推，最后呢气囊的缓冲
And
调一
during
下
this
就
phase,
会
the
就
automobiles
会进
is
入
going
着陆到
to
火星表面
work,
上。所以
and
整
with
个
the
这个过程
counterforce,
是完全自主
the
的，我们没有任何
rover
机会
is
进
going
行
to be
干预，它的
landed.
成败与否我们只
This
能在
is, we
信
have
号回来之
no
后知道它到底
opportunity
成
to
功了还是失
interfere
败了。
in
但
the
是我们
whole
都
process
一直保
during
持
this
很
three
高的
phase.
期待，因
So
为
whether
上
it's
次今
successful
天
or
真的
not,
付出了非常大
we
的
are
心
going
力，
to
进行了一次
keep
又一次的验证。
our
其实
concern
在之
about
前
this
火星捕获的时候，我
rover.
们有去采访过相关的研制人员，包括总师傅、总师。其实
I
大家的
have
信心我觉得还是很
interviewed
充
so
足的。
many researchers
因为
and
遇到了各
scientists.
种各样的难
We
题，
believe that
甚
we
至
have a
在
very
火
high
星捕获的时候，其实我
expectations.
们一直都
We
对外宣
have
传叫只有一次机会，错过
estimated
了
all
我们就
kinds of the difficulties.
飞过火星了。但事实上，
I think it's a
研制
very
团队
rare
甚至留出了第
opportunity
二版备案，就是说如
for
果我
us
在第一
to
次发射
send
没有成
the
功，
Tianwen
这个速度
number
没有
2.
减下来，减到足
But
够，它是
actually,
可以在3到4
even
小
if
时之
we
后
are
再进行
not
一次减速，让自
slowing
己的速
the roll
减下
down
去，然后
enough
再
to
进
let
行一
it
次火星
circling
突
the
破。
Mars.
而针对
It
这
is
样
going
一个
to
备案之后
the
的所有的轨道
structure
设
is
计也都
designed
是非
to
常
be
完备的。
stopped
所以
at the
其实真的
second
是
time
做了非常
in
多
order
的
to
预案
catch
准
up
备，
with the
让
speed
自己
of
这
the
个
Mars.
确保我们
That
第
is
一
to
次的这
say,
个火星探
I
测任务能够
believe
成
all the
功。因为
designing
对于我们来
teams of
说，
Tianwen
要
number
着
2
巡3
actually
步
went
进行
through a very
即便有
good
风险，那也意
preparation.
味着我们希望我们第一步就
So
可以比
with a
步子迈
plan
得
to
大一点，
follow,
不要再
even
去一
if
步一
there are
步来，
some
因为火
risks,
星探测的机会确
we
实
hope
非
that
常
we are
的
going to take a
非
stride
常非常的宝
way
贵，因为
forward.
2年多才可以进行一次嘛。 所以现在
The
这个火星它目前
experience
的一个
to
情况，
explore
这
the
个天文一号
Mars
上的系列
is
情
a
况大概
very
是这
rare
样的。
opportunity where
最
we
后
could
想给大家
only
介绍一下
conduct
天文一号这个
this
火星
kind
车
of
的它的
exploration
一个基本
every
性
2
能，其实很
years.
多人会关注它。它的这个它跟
Finally, I want to introduce you the basic performance of the Tianwen number 1 because I think a lot of you might understand the basics of the Tianwen number 2.
但是我们的火星车它这个可以
So
横着
it
走，这个
is
之前在很多的视频里
6-wheel
面是给大家
full
看过
drive.
的，
It can
不会是只能
be driven
这样
horizontally
前后顺
and
着移，然后这样拐
vertically.
需要掉个头才能走，它可以直接
So
横
just
向地
as
这
I
种移动，
mentioned,
所以研究
it
人
can
会
be
管这个
moving
叫
at
楔形
every
移动，就
single
像螃
direction
蟹一样，
as I am
这是它的
pointing
一
out
个
here.
特色。第二就是这个火
They
星车
are
的设计上，
working
大家会
like
看它
a
这个
crab.
设计人会认为它是一
So
只蝴蝶，
for the number
像
2
一个蓝色
features
的
of the
蝴蝶，所
design,
以有个学名叫做闪蝶，是因
I
为它四个太
believe
阳翼，特
the
别像蝴蝶
Tianwen
的
number
四大
1
翅膀，
rover
特别的
is
有美感。
designed in a
然后
butterfly
它
shape.
面对的这个土坡，包括
It
所有
has
的
its
坑，都
aesthetic
比月
aesthetic
球上的
beauty
表面能够实现的
when
要
it
高
is
很多。这个
crossing
抵
the
抗这个
surface
恶
of
劣
the
环境的
Mars,
能力都有一
experiencing the
个
ups
很
and
大的提
downs.
升。所以就是尽可能的去面对我们更多的
It
未知，因
is very
为火星
stable.
的环境是我们面对的最大的难题。其实
I
从技术的
believe
角
the
度，我们已
environment
经
of
很
the
熟悉了。
Mars do
最
pose
大的问
us
题
a
就
lot
是
of
在于环境
a lot of
的位置，所
uncertainties.
以我们只能尽可
I
能多的去
believe the
设想我们
biggest
可能会面临什么
unknown
样的问题。
to the
那火星车的
exploration
飞
of the
车我们大
Mars
家可能
is
会
about
关
the
心，它
environment.
其实是92天，在地球上是92天，其实是3个火星月。
I also
所
believe
以
the
整个
probe
任务
is
其实对于
designed
真
at
人认为
92
来说，他
days.
们会认为只有在着陆之后，然后3个月正常的这个火星车的探测任务
For the
设计寿命
researchers,
结束，他们可
they
能才会
think
真正的
that
松一口气。
after
所以
3
天文一号
months
接下来的路
of
程
the
还真的很
orbiting,
长，所以也希望大家能够
when
持
the
续的去
Tianwen
关注。
number 1 is
那今天
landing
呢，
on the
其实是
surface of
对
Mars,
顺带着借着
the
这个火星
mission
给
we
大
are
家讲
going
一下我们这个
to
火星探
stop.
测器的情况。也
Today,
让大家
we are
能
really
够更加
honored
的
to
振奋一
introduce
下，
you
因为
this
确实
rare
天文一号是
astronomical
给我们带来
phenomenon,
莫大的
and
骄
we are
傲。
here to lighten you
成
up
功实现了
to
火星
give
突
you
破，
more
变成了我们国家
introduction
第一颗
about
绕着火
the
星飞的人造
long-term
卫星。
astronomical effort
现
in
在
our
呢，
country,
我们继续
as
回
we
到
are
我们今天
praying
的
for
这
the
个
safety
景观话
of the
题上来。
Tianwen number 2.
我们不仅请到了这个我们刚刚大家看到的这个星空摄影师戴建峰戴老师，我们还请到了来自中科院国家天文台的研究员郑永春郑老师。那接下来他们二位会为我们带来更多的关于天文、关于火星的知识，也希望大家能够持续的关注
So
我们的
we are
直
not
播。
only invited Professor Dai, I believe that Professor Zheng is also from the National Astronomical Observatory is going to give us more introduction about these rare astronomical wonders. Let's invite them to give us more proper introduction of today's wonders of the universe.
老师好。
你好，戴老师好。
我们又见面了。
Professor Zheng, are you with us? I'm meeting you once again. Last time I'm meeting you when we were observing the Venus. I thought that we were meeting each other at the National Observatory, but today we are observing a quite unique phenomenon where the two stars is accompanying the moon. I'm actually currently in Chongqing. Are you still in Beijing? Yes.
它的亮度和我们之前在去年10月份。
So have you noticed the lightness of the Mars is brighter compared with what we have observed last October? Yes. I think the distance of the Mars to the Earth do changes a lot. When we were observing the Mars in last November, where the Earth, the Mars, and also the Sun is lining up at the same horizontal phase. So they are actually at its shortest distance. It is around 62 million kilometers. 4 months later, the Mars is running away from the Earth, while the Earth is also moving forward, catching up with the Mars. They are not at its closest distance. The current distance is between the Earth and the Mars is around 200 million kilometers. That's the reason why the Mars is much darker compared with what we have observed last November.
我们把它叫萤火星也有道理，就是它亮度会有非常大的变化。就一般情况下，一颗星的亮度总是变化不会太大啊。
In the ancient Chinese astronomical classics, we call it the star of the silver. And last October, throughout the night, we have observed that before the dawn, we could find the Mars approaching to the west side of the sky. We can imagine that a few months later, the time is going to be shorter.
你想现在火星到地球的距离是2亿公里，那它最远的时候其实要达到4亿公里。
The current distance between the Mars and the Earth is around 200 million kilometers. It's not the longest distance. It's not dark yet. It's going to be darker. And it's going to be one of the common phenomena. I believe on the 13th of the October, we were observing the Mars from the Hezhijian National Observatory, where we were still in the third quarter phase of the moon. The sun was just rising, and also the Mars was rising together with it. You can observe the Mars throughout the night, but today, every day, the rising of the Mars has been postponed. It is around 8 a.m. Do you have a connected earphone? Because I cannot hear you properly. I'd like to share with the viewers online about the knowledge of the Mars. The Mars is not only the brightest star in the universe. Its position also changed together with its lightness. I believe a few months later, the position of the Mars is going to be changed quite dramatically if it is approaching the Venus.
像我们看木星呢，它也被称为岁星吧，也就是说它12年它才转一整圈。那么我们现在看木星，它是在人马座，也就是说它要过1年的时间，才会运行到下一个星座。
Sometimes I think
运动变化其实
another planet might take 12 years to finish one of its orbiting circle. That is the Jupiter. So it is quite difficult for us to observing the radiation belt of the Jupiter. I've been talking with Professor Zheng for a long time.
我们所在的这个星数为参照物啊，它的移动变化也是比较快的。当然，它随着月亮随着这个
The movement of the Mars is also quite rapid, together with the Moon.
发现呢，其实每一个星座，它每1个小时是移动接近
When we are
15
observing the sky every night, you will find the different star positions changes together with the moon. And in our photos, I believe after 1 hour, it is going to be changed every 24 hours.
现在声音可以吗？
So Professor Zhang, can you hear me?
刚
Yes.
刚你说了那个火星每个小时移动15度，其实是地球每个小时转了15度。
You have
所以我们
mentioned
地球在自
the
转，
Mars
火
is
星比
actually
我们远，它
moving
虽然也
at
在动，但实际上是
15
我们地球
degrees
自转的一
every
个距离。
hour.
所以现在
Actually, it is
我们
because
基
the
本上
Earth
像
is
这种双星
self-orbiting
拱月
15
的这
degrees
种
every
实际
single
还是
hour.
比较难得的。
For these two
只
stars
有今天晚上会
accompanying
有，
the
然
moon,
后
it
你
is
过
a
了今天晚
rare
上，月亮就移走了，
astronomical
那
phenomenon
个火星
where
也移
it
走了，
only
大家都
happened
不在一起了，
tonight.
所以要看下一次
Because
再
after
在他
tonight,
们都
the
聚到一
moon
起
is
去的时候，
going
还是不
to
是容易得的。
move
对，而且这
away.
今天这2颗
And
星吧，
I believe
还
the
很有
next
点特
time
点，
we are
就
seeing
是
this
火星
astronomical
也是红
wonder,
色
it
的，
is going to
地
be
球也是
many,
红
many
色的，
years
所以其实
later.
2颗都是红色的星，一颗是
And
恒
today we
星
are also
啊，
seeing a
跟太
quite
阳一样，一颗
rare
是行星。
phenomenon
而
where
且
the
特别有
Mars
意思的
is
是，
a
今天
red
早上
star,
也就是
while
今天
the
凌晨4点
Aldebaran
52
is
分
also a
美
red
国
star.
的毅力号火星车已经登陆
at
火星了。所以你现在看到的这个火星上就有
Today
2
at
个火星车
the
正在开，
4
一个是好
a.m.
奇号火
Beijing
星车，
time,
一个是
we
毅力
could
号火星
see
车，它们正在
the
开动。
U.S.
我们的
rover
天问1
Perseverance
号
is landed
现
on
在
the
就
Mars.
成为了火星的人造卫
That
星，
is to
现在
say,
正
there are
在
two
环绕火星
rovers
进行运行。所
landing
以
on the
其
Mars,
实
while
在火
the
星上呢，
Tianwen
还有
number
阿
one
联酋的
is
希望号的
circling the
火星
Mars.
卫星，它也在环绕火
There are
星。
also
还有
number
火星探
the
测轨道器，
orbiter of the
然后
rover
马文号
Hope
的火
from
星探测器，
UAE
洞察号的火星探测器。
exploring the
现
Mars.
在此时
There are
此
so
刻
many different
已经有
explorers
11个
working on the
火星探测器
Mars.
在火星上工作了。
That is to
所以
say,
其实是
at this moment,
很热闹
there
的
are
一个场景
different
啊，那个都在那上
11
面等着啊。
rover
所以
working
大家
on
这
the
段
Mars.
时间可以
It is a
很好地
very
来关注一下火星，在2021年的5
I
月
think
份，
that
也就
it
是
is
天问1
just
号
the
对
time
火
to
星
observe
进
the
行
Mars.
详细考察，然后考察
And
着陆位置啊，掌握
So I
着陆的
believe
轨道和
in the
着
coming
陆的
May,
时机之后
Tianwen number
5月份
one
中国
rover
的天
is
问1
going
号
to start
将会
its
登陆火
scientific
星。
exploration
那是
on the Mars. It is going to be landed on the Mars in the 11th of the May. So here I'm only give you these informations. I believe together with Tianwen number one, we are seeing around 10 different scientific explorer or rover working on the surface of the Mars. I want to ask you, Professor Zheng, a question.
但是为什么毅力号是今天早晨已经登陆到火星
The
上了？
Tianwen number one is still circling on the Mars, while the Perseverance have landed today. Why we have to wait for 3 months to see the Tianwen number one to land itself?
为什么我们要等3个月之后才来
So this is a very good question
这个事情
about
啊
why
其实
should we wait for
比较
another 3
简单，
months to see
是因为我
Tianwen
们
number
采用
one
了不同
rover
的
landing
探
on the
测方式
Mars?
我们
This
处
is a
于
very
不同的
simple
探测
question
阶
because
段
we have
其实是
adopting
很简单
different
就是
explorational
美国的毅力号火星车
mission
啊，今天能够
and
登陆的
our
原因是因
explorational
为它
target
的
is
头
very
顶
different.
已经有
The
了
NASA's
火星的人造卫星
Perseverance
在那等着它。
landing
这就是火星勘测轨
is
道器和
because
马文号火
they
星探
have
测器
some of the
等等，他
human-made
们已经在
satellite
火星上了
waiting
很多年。
there
几年前就是
for
上一个
them.
火星探测
They've
器
been
的发
working
射
on the
成功，
Mars
他们
for
已经在
many
上面。
years.
所以火星车的着陆的
During the
信号
last
就是通过
sending
之前
the
已经在那
during
里
the
等着
last
的火
window
星卫星
period
把信号
of
传回来。
exploring the
所以我们
Mars,
为
they
什么
have
它一
sent
走路
so
3
many
分钟之后
different
马上就
rovers,
看到了
and they
火
have
星的图
sent
像了？其
out
实是因
the
为只
signals
有航天器在
back
那
to
等
the
着，
Earth.
然后能够把
That's
信号
reason
传过来。
why
天
3
问以后
minutes
呢，
after
没
the
人帮他去做，
Perseverance
就
landed
是
on
他
the
只能
Mars,
自己
they
带
have
着一个人
sent
到火
back
星，
the
然后带着
signals.
一个着陆器
But
过
for the
去。所
Tianwen
以
number 1,
今
we
天
don't have
天
enough
问1号是拉了
satellite
229
on the
几
Mars, and they
那
could
抵
not
达火星之
position
后呢，它
itself.
首先是对火星
That's
进行遥
reason
感
why
探测
it takes
然后呢要
3
分离
months
出一个人
after
到卫
it's
星来，在火星
approaching
上
the
空等
Mars.
着，
It
然后
is
成为火
conducting
星
the
的遥感卫星，
remote
同时也是成为一个中继卫星，
monitoring of the
这是火星
Mars.
车拍到的图像。
And then
以
it
地球上
becomes
指
a
挥火星
medium
车的信
range
号，都是
satellite
要通过
taking enough
这个头
photos
顶的轨道
of
器才能传回
the
地球。
Mars,
所以为什么
and
轨道器
then it
抵
is
达之
going
后
to
它
project
还要
all the
很长的时间
information
来
back
考
to
察
the
着陆
Earth.
场，然后呢收集
That's
信
reason
息，
why
然后
it
调整轨
still
道，
takes
然后
a
呢才
quite
能
long
时机合
time
适的时候才能把
to
火星
observe
着
the
陆下去。
surface of the
原因
Mars
就在
and
于我们
observing
是
the
2次
orbiting
任
the
务并
Mars
成了一次
for
做。
around
大家可
40
以
different
想象一下，
circles
如果我们分
because
成
we
2
are
次
actually
然
putting
后
the
2
two
年前
missions
我们已
together.
经发射
If
了
we
一个天问1
divided
号
this
那
exploring
么这次如
ratio
果发射一个天
by
问2
2
号过去
steps, for
就
example,
可以
2 years
直接
ago
登
we
陆
have
了。
launched
我
the
们跟
Tianwen
美国
number
是一样的，
1,
也就可以直
and
接
this time
登
I
陆。
believe that the
因为
Tianwen
天问1
number
号已经
2
在
can
那
be
等着了。
landed
那
directly.
现在因为2次并到一起
Because Tianwen number 1 has already waited for itself, but this time we are actually putting 2 missions together. That's the reason why it is going to work for a longer period of time. First orbiting, then landing. It is going to be a proper logic.
号的进步的时候也得想到，这已经是美国的第
Definitely,
5辆火
when we
箭
are
车了。
seeing the
90
great
年代有一辆火箭车
advancement
叫
of
索捷
the
纳号，索捷
NASA's
纳号也叫
perseverance,
旅居者号。
it is
那个
because of the
2003年有
advancement of the US technologies. In the 1990s, the United States have already sent some of the rovers on the surface of the Mars, and in the first 10 years of the millennium, they have sent the second generations of the Mars rovers, and currently it is around the third generations for NASA's Perseverance rover to be landed on the moons.
所以我们晚点着陆其实是为了更多的
We are the late mover in the explorations of the Mars. It takes more time for us to observe the terrains, the astronomical conditions, and the weather conditions of the Mars. I believe at the May this year, we are going to expect the Tianwen number 1 to be landed on the surface of the Mars. This is a much expected event.
它进入火星登陆的时候，这7分钟的这个时间其实是非常危险的，也是难度非常大的。而通常它都有很高的这个
And this morning, I believe the direct landings of the NASA's Perseverance is a very difficult journey. Moving forward, in the journeys of Tianwen number 1, it might also encounter all kinds of the risk factors, including bad weather. Why there is a black 7 minutes occurring during the landing process? Can you introduce me more about that information? This is a very interesting question. I believe sometimes you have already landed, give us some of the live streaming about the mediocre showers. Sometimes when people on the earth observing the mediocre showers, it's just the showers of the rains. Sometimes it takes several thousands of the meters or several meters of the stars. When we were crossing the atmospheres, it undertakes the high temperature, high pressure, and also the high speed. The process means the surface of the rover is undertaking a quite high temperature, as high as might be 3,000 degrees Celsius. And it's also reaching a very high speed. And at that time, when it was reaching the atmosphere of the Mars, the speed might reaches tens of the kilometers. Sometimes you could see the heating on the surface of Mars. With such high frequencies of the fluctuations, high temperature, and high temperature, it is harming the surface of the rovers. And one important question we have been talking about is that between the Mars and the Earth, there is a very long distance. So it takes the light 11 minutes to reach the Earth. So the spacecraft is going to be reached the surface of the Mars within 7 minutes. So the 7 minutes is far from enough for the spacecraft to be landed. We have an anecdote. Mentioning and talking about the monitor or the monitoring language is very difficult to reach to the actual operator. So that is to say, during this 7 minutes, the spacecraft or the spaceship have to rely on itself. I believe the spacecraft should also rely on itself to start the braking process. There are 20 different moments, and there are several different ways to lower down the speed. For the first phase, the speed can only be lowered through the fractions of the atmosphere. They should also enter it with the right angle. They hope to approach it in this manner to slide it in. The distance is going to be quite long. After the distance has been finished, starting from millions of the kilometers every single hour to several dozens of the kilometers every single hour. I believe the atmosphere at Mars is thinner compared with the Earth. The parachute should be quite large to buffer all the fractions, because the spacecraft have a very small volume while the parachute is very huge. We cannot make a very large parachute. The parachute with a surface of several different, with a surface size of 7 different basketball playground, whether it can withstand the test of the atmosphere in the Mars. And we should also consider about the counter movement of the spacecraft. This is another moment. So when should we light up the spacecraft? When should we stop the operation? This is a very important work. After we have lighted up to a certain height, when it reaches several hundreds of the meters above the sky, it is going to rotate itself and stop itself on the surface of the Mars, and they are going to drop one rock. And it is like a slide. The spacecraft is going to land it on the surface of the Mars, following the rope in a very slow manner. It has to rotate itself. Otherwise, it is going to be ruined. That is to see the Mars exploring spacecraft in a very light volume. The speed should be finished, and all the different process should be finished within 7 minutes, because it takes the signal to reach the Mars of around 11 minutes. So when we are going to light up the Mars, when it is going to rotate itself,
啊，然后又要着陆在
I
一个
believe
指
the
定的目标，
spacecraft
这个目
is
标
going
我们也
to
是非常明确
determine
的，就叫
the
耶泽
landing
罗环形
phase
山，就要
by
在那个里面
itself.
着陆。那是一个河流的冲击扇啊，三角洲。
Because
要
we
在那
have
么
a
非常精准的
requirement,
地方
or
着
we
陆，
have
它中
actually
间还会有这么
circled
大一
a
个
terrain
一个
for the
复杂的
spacecraft
过程。
to
你自
land.
己如果有机会，你跳个伞你就
This
知
is
道
a
了，你
quite
想落在哪里根本不容易
complicated procedure.
这风把你吹到哪里去，其实是不一定的。那火星其实大气也是有风的啊，这种吹它也会吹，所以
There are
必须
so many
要求
different
它在
and
这个降
other
落的
different
过
risk
程中它自己
factors.
能够调整。
For example, on the
它知道
surface of
自
the
己
Mars,
偏了，它
there
能够调
are
整啊，所以才能调
sandstorms
精确的着陆到
posing
那
a
个
lot of risk.
叫什么
But I believe the
耶泽罗环形山
spacecraft
上去
is going to
啊，到那个
detect
坑
the
里去，对吧？那个
sandstorms
地方是
on
有
the
生命的
Mars and
痕迹
try
的。
to
所以我觉得
avoid the
这个一
sandstorms
气
and
呵
other
成的过程
different
其实是非
bad
常
weather
当
conditions.
然美国也是第5辆火星车了，它已经相对来说已经比较有把握了。
Of
他说
course, it
前两
is
天不是发个信息
the
说这次成功的概率大概是 40%。所以
spacecraft
对于任
the
何
United
其他的
States
国
have
家
sent
那其实
to
火
the
星它
Mars.
是最难的
For
就在
other
着陆这个过程
countries,
啊
the
欧洲在
exploration
这
to the
之前
Mars,
有2辆
the
火星
landing
的那
is
个着陆器都摔坏了，一辆
means
是
that the landing
叫
process is
火
very
星快车号
difficult.
搭载
There
了
are
一个
two
着陆器
Mars
叫猎兔
rover
犬2号。
fired
兔
up
那
during the
个
process.
这个猎兔犬2号呢，就直接坐在火星
Number
上
bigger
坠毁了
two.
不知所踪啊。后来被另外一个
It
遥感
have
卫星发现，在火星上有一台
fired up
它砸下
on the
然
surface
后
of the
另
Mars.
外一个是2016年的叫火星
Another
3
important
然后它也有一个着
accident
陆器叫
on the human
斯基亚帕
history
雷利号
is
这个
that
其实跟我们今
there
天要
is
说的火星
a
还很有关系。斯基
NASA's
亚帕雷利是一个意大利
rover
的天
called
文学家，然后正是
Life.
因为他在观
It
测火
is
星的时候
also
看到了一个隐隐约约
experiencing
的
the
像河道一样的东
astronomical
西然后
accident.
激起了罗威尔去找火星上的运河，找火星人其实就也是
Then
当年
important
火星冲刺的时候
Italian astronomical
斯基亚帕雷利
scientist
第一次在
Mr.
火星上
Novio,
看到
when
了
he
那个
was observing the surface of the Mars, he do find
然后那个
some
这个单词在翻
natural
译成英文的
wonders
时候
like
罗威
the
尔他们就
river
看到的
track,
英文单词是 canal，C-A-N-A-L，
some
就
signs
是
of the
运河
waterways.
所以大家就觉得火星上有运河，所以他
That's
就
reason
建了
why
一个
they
在那
have
个亚利桑那
sent
州建了一
the
个天文台
number
叫罗威尔
canal
天文台，就是让他们
to
去找火星运河去的。
the
结果运河没
Mars.
找到，找
They
到一颗
have
冥王
built
星
an
冥王
observatory
星这次
in the
就是那
state
个
of Arizona.
汤博在罗威尔天文台用它来找火星运河的这个望远镜来找到的，所以其实有时候
They
想
are
想看
using
你
this
想这件事情
national
是很有意
observatory
思的
to
然后
find the
你看
Mars
斯基亚帕雷利
rocket
号坠
carrier.
毁了，当年它是激起了大家对火星的好奇，然后今天毅力号又登陆火星了。
It has
5月份天
sparkled
文1号
the
也登陆
national
火星，所以
interest
我觉得
of the Mars.
从
Today,
大家
we have
对
seen
火
the
星的
NASA's
了解来看
Perseverance
第
rover
一呢是
landed
对
on
火
the
星
surface
越
of the
来越感
Mars,
兴
and
趣
in the
其实这是
coming
一点。
May,
第二呢
we are
看
also
到
going
火
to see
星
Tianwen
它
number
是一
one
种
landed
熟
on the
悉的
surface
陌
of
生，
Mars.
就是它越来越
We
有点
believe
像
that
火
we
星，
have
但
a
是同时
very
呢又越来越觉得
mixed
跟地球
feeling towards the
它
Mars.
熟悉的陌生就是它越来越像地球地球上很多
We
的场景
used to
跟火星上的
think
场
the
景是类
Mars
似的，
is
但
going
同
to
时呢
be
你
the
又会觉得
next
它是另外一
Earth,
个不同的星球，它
while
跟地球很不一样。
most
所以
of the living
这是第
scenarios
一点，
on the
所以我
Mars
们
is
将来
very
一定
similar
会
to
去，
what we
然
are
后等到你
experiencing
想想
on the
看，
Mars,
大概我
on
估
the
计再
Earth,
过
but
15
actually
年或者20
it
年之
is
后，
quite
你会看到
different.
再看火星双星掩日。
I
日的
also
时候你可以
believe
看到
50
上面有
years
人在给你
later
招
or
手
20 years later,
这是我觉得可
when
以
you are
会
viewing
期待
these
的，就
two
20年
stars
左右
accompanying
那
the
可能
moon
上
once
面真的
again,
有人在
we
给
are
你
going to
打
have
个
a
打个
better
电话给你，
knowledge
说
of
你
the
看你看
Mars.
到我了吗？我点个火给你看看，都是有可
We
能
are
的
also going
就
to
是这
send
确实
the
是变得越来
human
越
astronaut on the
近。
surface of
然
the
后
moon.
当然
He's
在
at
历
Mars.
史
He's
上来
also
讲
going
火
to
星
call
这
you.
个它其实已经很多次
But
欺骗
during
过
the
人了。
long course of the history,
它
Mars is a
开
very
始的时候大家觉得
important
很多火星
planet. It has
对
frauded
包括
the
那个
human
火星
beings
上的
for
人
many
脸
times.
包括那个火星上的运河，然
Sometimes
后包括
we
火星
might
上发现的生
observe
命
there
的
are
仪
some
器，其实
human
都是
faces on
最
the
后
surface
都
of
会
Mars.
证明没
There
有，
are
对
so
吧？
many
但
different
同时其
canals
实
on the
让大家又
Mars,
看到了
and there are
火
some
星
the
更有
tracks
意思
of
的一
life
面，比
on the
方说
surface of
你
Mars, but they are all proven to be
空
wrong.
气里面测到了甲醛，那个可能跟生命有关系。然后同时，比方说我们也发现
I believe the detectives have also testified the science of the methods in the air of the Mars, and in the human history, we have also imagined about migrating to the Mars, and I believe Elon Musk has also put forward a mission to migrate the human to the Mars. For this remote star, although it is quite remote, when we are viewing these two stars approaching and accompanying the moon, we believe the Earth is still our homeland, while we are putting our future expectations and imaginations on the Mars. As a dweller on the Earth, we all have this opportunity to really start our Mars explorations and journeys.
天问1号，这次计划的登陆地点是在乌托邦平原，对吧？然后为什么我挺好奇的。
You have mentioned that Tianwen number 1 is going to be planned to be landed on the Utopia plate Plato. Why does it happen? Why do you selected that area? Is it giving us an easier opportunity or possibility to detect more natural phenomena on the surface of Mars? This is a very good question. Let's talk about where the Utopia plateau is. So, I believe the Utopia plateau is located in the north hemisphere of the Mars. So the Mars have a very similar structure compared with the Earth. The land is being clustered up on the north hemisphere. That's the reason why we have selected the north hemisphere of the Mars. On the Mars, the north hemisphere is the sea, and the Utopia plateau is a very large plateau. It is larger than Chengdu plateau.
它在我们要登陆的地方大概是在什么地方呢？相当于在乌托邦，在火星的什么地方？在地球上，我们打个比方，在两广地区，在两广地区。
I think we are going to land the Tianwen number 1 somewhere resembles the Guangdong and Guangxi region. It is approaching the equator of the Mars. It is close to the sun because the Tianwen number 1 is a solar energy powered rover. It has 4 wings to receive the solar power because the Mars is more remote compared with the moon. It have 2 astronomical units distance compared to the distance between the Earth and the moon. That's the reason why the Tianwen number 1 have designed in this feature. But for the Mars orbiter, the closer it is approaching the equator, it is very conducive to its driving. Second, one important feature, on the Utopia plateau, it is a very low plateau. We did not select on the toppest point of the Mars because when we were experiencing the 7 black minutes, the longer it is, the better it is. That is to say, the lower the terrain is, the longer the distance is going to be, the better the buffer function of the atmosphere is going to work. They are not. It is not going to approaching to the highest point of the Mars. I believe it is the cumuloma of the solar system, but currently we are selected a very lower terrain of the Mars. The third reason is because of the scientific exploration. The Utopian plateau on the Mars has a very diversified geological conditions.
火山喷发物
We
质
have
堆积的
sent
一
the
个地方。
Chang'e number
所以
2
月球上已经
into
几
the
十亿年
Lingmu
没有火山喷
crater
发
on the
那么我们
surface
找
of the
到一个
moon.
非常年轻的地方，他们能够
There
找
is
到跟
no
火山有关的一些痕迹，那证
eruptions
明月球
when
至
we
今还没有
were
死亡，它可
landing
能还有一
the
定的活力，
Chang'e
一
number
定的活
2.
力啊，只是
The
僵死
mission
的
has
状态。
not
那
failed
么
so
火星也
far.
是一样的，就是我们也要寻找一个有
It
风力
is
有
also
生命
works
有
for the
水
same
滴
logic.
这样
When
的
we
一
were
些
sending the
痕迹
Tianwen number 2,
留存的一些
we
地
need
方。
to find
那
an
么从这个
area
地方去找
with the tracks
风的痕
of
作用的痕迹，
wind,
水作用的
the
痕迹，
life,
生命
and
作用
also
的
the
痕迹。
water,
当然有没有生命现在还是个问题啊。那目的就是
where
要
we could
看到
prove
它的风力、
the
水滴
water and
以及生
wind
命
do
这样的一
existed
些
on the
信号。
surface of the
这
Mars.
就是综合来选择乌托邦这个着陆场的一个原因。
That is why we have selected the Utopia
这
Plato.
样子哈，有这么多所考虑的这个因素哈。我知道甄老师
Wow,
您是
there are so many
以前
different
是在这个
reasons
系统
behind this
上
wonderful
是专门
selection.
研究这个跟土壤这些是有特别关系的。那是不是您自己就有参与到这个天问1号的这个
Professor
科学项目
Zheng,
里面
I know
去
that
研究这方面
not only working for the National Observatory, you have also have a background of researching into the different types of the
我
Earth.
当时是
Can you give
已
us
经多
more
少年前了，
background
是20多
information?
年前了。现在我们看我们节目
I
的
think
这
it's
个
around
小朋友
20 years
那时候还
ago.
没生呢，对吧？那时候我们那时候重
I
庆还没
believe
直
some
辖
of
呢，
your
那时候
viewers
我们
has
写
not
信
been
的时候叫
burned
四川
yet.
省重庆市啊，然后后来直辖
At that
的。
time,
那时候
Chongqing
三
is
峡都
not
还没
an
截流呢，
municipal
那
government,
个长江还是自然
and
流
we
淌
have
的，
not
后来三峡才
started
截流
this
了。
Three Gorges program in
在
China
我在那
yet.
里面只是
It's
读的本
around
科
20 years
啊
ago.
没有学那个，后面我都是在中科院的，
I
所以今年是在中科院
was
第20年
majored
啊。那么
in
对于
the
天问1号和火星
explorations of
来
the
讲，
Earth
其实虽然我们
in
现
the
在才
Yunnan
开始火星
University.
探测，但是对于火星的研究其实是
Although
10几
we
年前、20
started
几
the
年前就已经
exploration
有
to
在
the
研究
Mars
了。那么
just
有几种方式可以研究，第一个
at
呢
this
是
year,
地球
but
上有
actually
来自火
40
星的
years
陨
ago, we
石
started the
啊，这个陨
preparations.
石呢，有
We
一块样品可以
have
分成很多个
detected
部分
all the
啊，很多
different
部分可以由各国
samples
国家的科
from
学
the
家都可以
Mars,
进行
and
研
we
究
have
对于
divided
火星
one
陨石可以
sample
进行研究。
into many
第二个呢，
different
对于火星探测
pieces,
和
and
其他的
each
行星探测来讲，
important university
在
have
全世界各个
preserved
我
one
们要
piece.
采用同样的数据格式，叫 PDS 格式，叫行星数据系统的格式。还有一
According
呢，就是我
to
们
the
要
word,
让这些数据容
word
易获
according
取
to the
其他国家的科学家
national
可以用这个数
standards,
据来进行研究。
we are going
所以其
to
实
figure
我们虽然
out
才
all the
开始
different
天文1号的探
configurations
测，但是
of
我
the
们火
meteorology.
星的书籍火星的专业图书
We have
等等，
just
其实这方面的
started the
东西已经非常
explorations
非常多了，然后有很多
this
的
year,
铺垫
but we have a
有
lot of
然后这
books,
样才可以进行
books
天文
and
1号的论证，
magazines, and
然后
also the
将来才可
television
以
programs
真正的
introducing
实
us
施。
the
所以
background
其实我们现
information
在
of the
在做的
Mars.
工作都是这样的，就是利用火星的探
The
测数
work
据
we are
可
doing
能是
is
现在的
following
国
the
外的数
same
据为主。
logic.
然后还有一些
The
呢是在
explorational
实验室
data
内模拟
might
火星的
comes
环
from
境
other different
然后呢
countries.
创造火星的大
We
气
are also trying
辐
our
射
best to
温度
detect
等
the
等这样的一些模拟
environment,
环境
the
然后来模拟
atmosphere,
火星上的
radiation,
矿物的
and
沉
also
积
the
岩类的
temperature,
沉积这样的一些过
and
程，这些
also
实验过
the
程其实都是在地面的实验室里面
accumulations
模拟
of the
模拟的过
minerals
程。
on the
然后
surface
呢
of the
还有一
Mars.
些呢是可以到野外，比方说
This is
青
a
海的
accumulating
大
process.
彩蛋地区冷湖地区甘肃的金川地区等
Sometimes
等
we
有一些
might
类似
even
火星
went
的地
to
貌
some of the
那么这
remote
些地方你就可
areas
以
in
进行一些
Qinghai
考
and
察
in
然后
Gansu
进行一些地球和火
to
星的对比
conduct some
这
of
些东西
the
都可以在地球上
exploring journeys
我刚才
to
说
compare
我插一句
the
我去
historic
过
record
大
on the
连
Earth.
那边拍摄星空的。各位网友如果有机会也去
I've
到那的话
been-
你会发现那
I
边的
have
星
been
空特别
to
漂亮
Dachaidan
因
in
为其实
Qinghai
在高原
province
地区
to
而且
take some of the
周边
photos
呢
of
也
the
没有
starry
什么光影的
skies.
影响
I
非常
also want to kindly remind
就
all the
像
dear
郑老师
viewers
说的
do
那
not go
边
to
其
there.
实是地
It
貌是更
is
接近于火星的
of a very
这边
harsh
应该是亚丹地
natural
貌的感觉
conditions.
是吧？然后那边的这种地貌很接近火
It
星地貌，让
is
大家去看
a very
那电视
unique
里
terrain.
拍出来的照片其实是非常非常漂亮和震撼的。而且你在那儿可以应该说近
If if you went to a tourist journey there, that would be fine, and you can also take some of the pictures of the starry night. when you
那
were
您接着说。
in a tourist group there.
这广告不能
So
打得太厉
please
害啊，就
continue
是经
your
常那
speech,
个
Mr.
经常
Zheng.
那个大家朋友圈晒照片啊，以及那个做微博推文的时候说，
Sometimes
这
I
是中
see
国
a
的
lot
马尔
of
代夫
photos from the
就
WeChat
是那个
moments.
拍出来确实非常非常的漂亮，但
They
是
have
实话
always
去了
called
之后那边
that
还是比较
area
荒凉，说实话
the
啊，那
Maldives
个
in
空
China.
气也比较
But
稀薄，
actually,
那
when you
个甚
went
至还会
there,
有一
it
定的
is a
高原
very
反应
barren
啊，一定
area,
会缺
while
氧
the
啊，
air is
也
quite
有这方
thin.
面的东西，
You are
所以大
going
家
to
如果
experience
真的对这
some
个东
of
西
the
感兴趣，
plateau
希望
response.
体验大
But
漠
if you are
火
really
星
interested
啊这
in
样的
that,
一
if you
些
really want to
场景
have
的
a
话，我
hands-on
觉得是看看
experience
是
on
可以
that,
但是千万不能
I
啊
suggest
被
you
那
to
个
go to
什么
there.
中国的马尔
But
代夫这样的一个吸引过去
do
啊，这个
not
是可以的啊，我
being
觉得这个是还是不一样的啊。那
triggered
个戴
or
老师拍的照片都很
frauded
漂亮，
by
但
the
是照片是
nickname of
照
the
片，去的时候
Maldives
去
in
的是吧？
China.
人家看
It
星
is
空
not
确
as
实是一个非
beautiful
常
as
好的一个地
Maldives,
方，那个地方
but it is
空气会更
actually
稀
a
薄一
but
点，
it's
然后
actually a very
灯
good
光污
place
染
to
基本没有，
observe
这
the
是实话，
astronomical
基本
world.
没有。对，所
There is
以
no
看银河、看
good
什么东西都非常好，
dwelling
拍出来照片
conditions.
非常好。然后哪怕
You
白
are
天
going
来体
to
验
observe
也非常好，就有
the
很多
Milky Way.
真的是给人的心灵都会净化啊，就是特别荒凉的一个情况。
It is going
啊，
to
所以我觉得这都是
purify
一个非
your
常好的
heart.
产品。
It
那么
is
其
going
实
to be a
对
quite
对于
enlightening
我
journey
在
if you went
如
to
果
the
说在火
Qinghai
星上看星
province,
星会是
the
什么样？
Damudan Plateau.
啊，那个
So I'm just wondering, what
经常有
does
人
the
会这样的
people
想
on the Mars look
我们
at
也
the
只是
stars?
根据想象，当然从那个模拟的天文软件这方
I
面，
think I can only answer you question through the
从地球上
my
看到是四
imagination,
周的一个
but
天
I
球和
believe
火星
through
的
the
看法是一样的，
stimulation
其实
photos
对
I
吧？
can
是类
answer
似
your
的。
question.
那我们不就那个比方说有这种天球仪，对吧？那有12星座，有什么东西，它那应该也是。
For example, you have
类
these
似还有在
spiral
黄道面上，
explorers like what is
对，它
holding in my hand.
因为都在
You
太阳
can
系嘛，
through
你
this
看背景的这些
simulation
星座其实它
equipments,
是
you are
类
going
似
to
相似的，
figure
不
out
会有
what
什么变
is
化。只是
happening
说我
on the
们
Mars.
在火星上，比如说你要看我们地球的话，可能它就有点像我们在看金星、看水星一样。
If you are observing the Mars from the surface of the
就
Earth,
是这样子。但是我在想，就是关于火星的这个大气哈，因为您说它的大气可能
the
它的大气密度
atmosphere
只有我们在地球的
on the
1/1000
Mars
对不对？那么在火星上，那么
is
某种意义上
only
来说，肯定会比我此刻在重庆
1%
看的这个星空只要起码
denser
会
and
更大
1% of the
那个
atmospheres
你
condenses
看它
on the
照
Earth.
理它应该也在黄道面上嘛，那
对
地球也在黄道面上嘛，黄道上
I
12个
think
星座。
the
所以我觉得
Mars
在火星
is
上应该也
not
会有12个星座，但只是说
self-orbiting
它
as
是要
frequently as it
687
used to
天才能
be,
绕一
so
圈
does
它
the
不是
Earth.
分12个星座的啊，也不
It
是一个一个
takes
星座的这样子的，但是应该会有类似的星座。包括我们今天看
87
到的地
days
球
to
我们就在金牛
finish
座这个
one
也是一样的。
self-orbiting.
它比较有意思的一
And
点呢，
today
就是
we
说
are
火
observing
星
the
上没有这么亮的月亮
Briareans and also
啊
the Venus.
所以对，所以
The
你
sky
会
is
看
as
到
big
火星
like
天空
this.
中有2个相对来说不亮，比月亮要暗得多的这么2个小月亮，这是有的。
火星的位
这
置
2个对2个小月亮，火卫一
So
火卫
if you
2，它
can
其实只有
imagine
90
from
公里
the
大。
surface of the
其实
Mars,
月亮是
you
有
could see 2
1737
small
千米的直径的
moon-shaped
所以其实非常非常大的。那么
stars,
这2个小月亮在天
but
空中，
they
它
are
也不
not
是一天
as
转一圈
bright
了，
as
必须会转
moons.
不是一个
They
月
are not going
转一
to
圈了，
orbiting every
那
single
么
day.
其实这2个小月亮就相当于在天空中会反复出现啊，
I
反复出
think
现。
the two
那
moons
么还有一个就
is
是
going to
肯定没有
converge
光污染，
on the same
天空中
point.
的地球本身的光会更
There is
多，太阳
no
光也会更多
pollutions for the
因
light.
为又没有月亮，所以从这个角度来讲，在那看星空、看银河应该更壮观才对。
I
是吧
think
当
if
然，其实
you
我觉
are
得
going
如果
to
你真要在
observe
火
the
星上
Milky
看
Way
星
from
空，
the
我觉得你最
Mars,
关心的
it
其实
is
是地
going
球
to
了，你已
be
经不关心别的。
a real wonders of the universe. But as a dweller on the Earth,
用望远
you are
镜拍
going
到
to
地球
definitely
这应该
curious
是一个
about what
很有
is
意思的
happening
一
on
个
the Earth.
你肯定可以拍得到地球，肯定没有问题。就跟
I
我们现
think
在，
this
你看
is
上次在核子舰，其实6200万公里
going
嘛，就
to
大概
be
这
a
样距离吧
very
你能够
unique
看得到火星的
position.
极冠啊，看得到。如果望远镜分辨率再高一点，你还能够看得到它的明暗的分区，
If
然后 它能
the
够看得
binoculars
到
configuration is going to be higher. You are going to see the different terrains of the Mars.
看得到奥林匹斯
You are
山
going
这样
to
的
see
一
the
个大火山
Fuji
所以基本上如果你要在
and
那上
so
面
for
看，
some
应该
of the
能够看到
big
青藏高原，
craters
能够看得
like
到
Mount Olympus.
地球上的这些大陆一个海洋。
甚至大气，我们应该都可以看到。而且
You are
而且
also
我觉
going
得
to
还
see
有一个
some
很有
of
意思
the
对而且我
plateaus.
觉得应该比较有意思哈，大家其实很多的天文爱好者呢，特别是拍一些行星摄影的，当然这方面我并不是很擅长啊。他们用望远镜，然后来去拍摄火星，而且它进行一个很长时间的一个拍摄，可能跨度到1年。然后它
There are
会
so
发
many
现很多
different
的这种现象，比如说火
binoculars.
星上面的这种，比如说沙尘暴。
You are going to
然后火星
observe a
就
lot of
拍摄出发现
binoculars.
跟以前拍摄它比
And
以前的
in the
变模
previous
糊
record of
然后
all
呢
the
如果
different
这个拍摄
binoculars,
还甚至可
you are
以
going
发
to
现
see
这个
some of
火
the
星
previous
相对于
historic
废弃的火
records,
星应该是白色的
including
大
the
家会有这个
sandstorms
意识
happening on the
我觉得大家如果对
Mars.
摄影感兴趣的话，应该也是
And
可
if
以
you
去
are
尝试
interested
可以去
in
尝试的。
the
而
taking
且
some
这
of the
方面呢，
photos,
核
it
心的
is
关键应该是
of
要
the
有一个
best
望远
for
镜，
you
一个天
to
文望远
find
镜
it.
才行，要放大上百倍才可以。而普通的就没有办法了，它不像，因为火星距离我们太远了，不像我们用手机拍月亮能够直接拍得到。
So the Mars is far on
我
the
还有
way
一
from
个比
us.
较感兴趣的问题哈，我们
I
刚才聊到
also
这个
have a
火星
very
而且现在因为
a
画面里这个
question,
火星
very
它
important
已经
question that
移动出
that
屏
has
幕了。
intrigued
然后
me
我
for
们
a
我
long
想回
time
头聊一聊
because
月亮，
on the
因为我们
surface
嫦娥5号
of
啊已经采样
my
返回了，现在已经在
camera, we could see the Mars is moving away from us. It is almost moving out of this frame.
很多网友对这比较感兴趣。
So my question is that are there any
这个
interesting
实际上是
discoveries of the
我觉得这样的
Chang'e
信息
number
也可以理
5?
解就是样品回来了，那我们可以
I
进行
can
研究了，对吧？
understand your
但实际上
curiosities because
包括
Chang'e
我们
number
对
5
于
is
天文一
coming
号的
back
期
and
待也
it's
好，
the
我
time
们
for
希望它
researchers
能
like
够
us
尽快
to
地走入，
working on
尽快
it.
地传回
And
数
we
据，
also
希望
have
月球
a
样品
lot
一般能看到。
questions
这
posing
都要有一
toward
个
Tianwen
过程
number 1.
说实话，这一定要有个过程。这个过程，我们也要给它一定的空间。那
It
么
takes
大家看到的，其实现
a
在正在看到
process
的
for us
月
to
球上的
finish
非常有意思，就是你看到的
it.
下面这个正好是月球上的澄海和近海这两片黑的地方，正好是月球上的澄海
And
和近海。
we can
然后实际上
observe
它
the
组成的
surface
是一
of the
个
moon.
兔子，
It
兔子的
is
头
what
和
we
身子
call the deep
所以
sea
正好
and
你看到
silent
的
sea.
有点现在曝光过度了啊，刚刚那个曝光小一点就可以好了，就非常清楚，就实际上是月球上的两个月海月
This
这个
is a
澄海和
very
近
clear
海。
image.
这个对非常好，非常好非常好。这个
There
实
are
际上
two.
是
Yes,
上面那
this
个
is the
上面
best
稍微再下来移一点点。
clearance.
那么上面这个呢
I
更
think
偏
you
上
should
面这个
move
实际上是
lower down
澄海，
and
稍微
moving
跟
upward.
澄海挨着的这个是
It,
近海。
this is what we call the
近海
deep
就是
sea
阿波罗
on the
11号
surface of the
登月的
moon.
地方。
And
就是
approaching
兔
it,
子的上面是
it
兔子的
is
头
the
嘛，
silent
中
sea.
间
It
是
is
个
where
兔
the
子的身
Apollo
子。
the
这
11 have
个兔子的
landed
身
on the
子上
Earth.
就是阿波
You
罗11
can
号
just
当年阿波
view
罗登
this
月
shape. It is a
阿姆斯特
rabbit
朗登月
shape
的地方
plateau.
所以这
And
就是
I
然
believe
后
on the
因为
head
今天呢
part
正
of
好
this
有一个
rabbit, it is where the
像是
Apollo
月球上的
11
晨昏
has
线嘛，
landed
大家其实
itself.
可以看得到，这边是月球上的白天，那边
Because
是月球
today
上的
we are
黑夜。
actually
在晨
experiencing
昏
a
线这个地
very
方，实际上是
rare weather
月球
condition
上的
on
那
the
个撞击
Earth,
坑会更明显，
on the
就是
moon.
它因为太阳光比较低嘛，对
And
对对，
we
立
are
体
also
感就
going
很
to
强。
see
所以
the
这个时候
different
你会看到
craters
月球上有很多
see
坑。那我们中
demonstrating
国的
itself
嫦娥5号
clearer.
登陆的地方不在这既不在澄海，也
And
不
the
在近海。
Chang'e
那
number
么我
5,
们要登陆的地方，实际上
it
远离
is
所有阿
not
波罗
in the
登陆。
in the deep
我们
sea
跟他
or
们
in the
登的
near
地方
sea.
都不在一起离得越远越好越远说明我们跟他采到的样品
I
越不
think
一样。
the
那就是你最
longer
好
the distance
别在重
is,
庆采，你到
the
西藏去
better
采
the
取
result
跟
is
重
going
庆
to
肯定
be.
差别越大，对吧？所以这个事儿其实是
I
采
think
样的时候
if
的一
you
个问
are
题。那么
approaching into
样品回
Xizang,
来地球之后，其
the
实还会
sampling
面临一个问
result
题，就
is
是
going to
说
be better.
这个样品是要完全隔绝地球大气对它的污染地球上的所有的
The
东西
sample
对它来
needs
讲
to
都
be
是污染。
isolated, or the
因为
all
月
the
球是
different
真空
pollutions for the
没有
sample needs to be
氧气，所以
isolated.
它是在还原状态下形成的。然后它也没有水，
And
所
the
以它
its
没有水滴
original
作用的结
status,
果，
there is
它也没有
no
生物，也没
oxygen,
有微
no
生物病毒，
water,
更没有新冠。那么
no
这些 些东西它其实
biological
都是
conditions.
相当于在完全隔绝风、大气 然后水
If we
然后
isolating
水其实
the
还会去
earthly
产
weather
生很多化
conditions,
学反应
including the
然
wind,
后完全
the
隔绝生物
atmosphere,
这种
the
条件下
water,
形成的。那么这样的话就说
the
这
biological
些形成的
conditions,
物质跟地球上的物质是很不一样的。
the
完全不可
material
以
is
接受
generated
啊
on the
地球
moon
的
is
大气
quite
地球的
different
环境对它的一个影响污染，
compared
所以
with
需要
Earth.
在一个高层
It is
氮气
far away from the
然后
impact
呢
of
里
the
面气压
Earth.
比外面高，就跟我们新冠那个给你做核酸检测的时候，大家看到它那个亭子里面，它气体是往外吹的，所以你外面有病毒，其实对它没影响。要是它里
It
面
is
气
just
体
like
气压
when
比
you
外面
are
低的话，外面
doing
有
the
病毒它
PCR
会直接
testing
往
for
它里面进去。
COVID-19
所以
and the
月球样品也是这样
sample
的，就是
taking
它是要一个
tube, the
气压比
internal part is vacuum.
外面高的
So
这
it is
高的
also
地方，然
happening
后气体都是
at the
往外
same
排
time,
那么能
at
够
the
保
same
证它里面
condition
是一个
compared
高
with
纯
the
的氮
moon.
气，然后这样的话才能打
It
开
is
月球样品，然后进行
activating
一
the
些分析研究。我们要得到
air.
它的是它的矿物的
And
组
that
成、
is why
元
we
素
are
的
going
组
to
成、
start
不
the
会素的组
series
成，
of the
然后呢，
research
将来还
of
会
the
测定
moons.
这
We
个
are
月球
going
岩石
to
的年
research
龄，
into the
然后呢，要用各
mineral
种高精
compositions
尖
on
的
the
仪
moons,
器，这些仪器设
the
备其实也
age
要
of
经
the
过改造。
moons, and
大
we
家
are
知道这
going
仪器
to
设备我们现
use
在
a
都是在
lot
地
of
球
the
上
high
地球环境里面
and
来去我们地球上的石块你拿
top-notch
过来，反正在
gadget
地球上
to
形成的，你
research
不用担心它会变化，
the
因
moon,
为它就大自然形成的，
the
所以我
moon's
们就
mineral
拿到仪器下
composition.
面直接就可以观测。但是你在那个月球样品，你不能
I
直接这么观
believe
测了，
if
因为你一
we
观测它就
took
接触大气
some of
了，
the
一接触
samples
大气它
from
就
the
不是
moon,
原来的
we are
样品。
not
所以
going
你要
to
对原来的这种仪器设备也要进行改造，
observe it
不
originally.
能直接拿去，直接
I
拿一
think
块
you
月
need,
球样品
when
拿
we
出
are
来，
trying
不
to
能拿出来。
exploring into
它
the
那个手
moon,
套箱，它那个密封那个东西就是这样的。如果你别的地
the
方要测，
raw
那应
sample
该要把
cannot
别
be
的仪器要
observed
经过改造，
since once you
对吧？
have
所
put
以
it, once you
既
have
要
collected it,
稳
it is
妥又要
containing
积极，
the
还要
air
制定
from
一
the
个
moon.
非常详细的研
So
究
the
方案。
process
其实这个
should
时候我
be
想跟大家来强调啊，
aggressive
月球
while
样品
it should be
我经常
conducted
打一
in
个
a
比
quite
较
stable
形象
manner.
的比方，相当于国家特级文物，
I have
可能比特级文物
put
还
it
要宝贵，因为我
into
们总
an
共只有
analogy
1731克。
that
这
is
1731
to see
克
the sample
可能还要
of
用
the
50年到100年，
moon's
就是
Earth
大家说
is
50年之后、100年
rarer
之后，这个月球样
compared
品
with
还
the
在。
national level
因为大家不会
athletes.
再到同一个地方再去抓一把土了，不会的。
It
这个地
should
方
be
就抓过这
used
一把土，下次也
forever.
不会再有。
Like
一般情况下是
across
这样子的
the
啊。
country
因为他们
currently, we
要
have
去同
only
一个地方。
accumulated
我们既然市场这么漂亮，那下一次就要去九
1,187
寨，要去决
grams of
别的
the
地方，
samples
绝对
on
不会
the
去同一个
Earth.
地方。对，要换一个地
But
方。那么这样的一个样品，它
the
要长
Earth's
期的
rover
使
is
用，
not
所以我
going
们
to
在进
reach
行研
the
究的时候
same
是
spot
非常谨慎的。
on the
它是
next
每一颗
exploration. So
样品，
every
每一个
time
颗
of
粒
the Earth's
都会
exploration, it is going
要
to
求
be
它
very
尽
rare.
量的
Every
不损
single
耗，我们叫
particles,
无损分析。
every single
要么呢
sample
叫做衡
is
量
going
分析，
to be
啊，就是
analyzed
不是微
without
量的啊，微量也挺
any
难的，
waste.
是衡量
That
分
is
析，
what
就
we
是
called
衡计
a
的就是非
constant
常非常小的毫克
consistent
甚至微克啊这样的一个
analyzing.
分析。
That is to
那
see
么
we
这
have
种情
divided
然
the
后呢
sample
还要做
into
循
milligrams,
那个
and
重
then
复
we
利用
are going to
啊，
analyzing
一样
it.
比方说我显微
And
镜
we are
看过
going to
了，那我
repeat
再
to
去
use
做
it.
其他的分析。
For the
还要
simple
有一个非
sample,
常详细的
I'm
一个
going
分析
to
流程的设计，
using the
使得这一
microscope
颗样
to
品的
observe it,
价值
and
发
then
挥到
I'm
最
going
大，
to analyzing
它的
it
使用
in a very
信息
detailed
能够
manner.
发掘到
And
最
for
大。
the, every
所以
single
这
drop
个
of the
过程其实
particles,
都是
we are going to use it
我
and
告
to
诉你
its
的
maximum.
越严谨
All the process is
越
going
分
to
析
be
越
designed
越漫长，
scientifically.
其实是越可靠。
Because
而且你
even
将
if
来
we
你要知
have
道
taken
我
some of
们
the
所有
samples
的
from
分析
the
结
Earth,
论，比方说
by
月球上
one
发现
time,
水啦，
the next
月亮
time
发
when we
现什么东西
started
啦，这样
the
的分析结
moon
论
exploration,
都要经受住
the
时间的
explorer, the
检
other
验。
rover, is
你
never
将来
going
发
to
表
reach
论文的
the
时候
same period, the
发
same
表论文的时候，
position.
别人都会问你，当时你是怎么分析的？你是怎么处理这个样品的？你是在什么条件下打开这个样品的？
So when
你是
you
怎
are
么分析
publishing
的？
your papers
怎么
on the
避免这个
sampling
你
process
射
of
到
the
的这个
moons,
水它
you
就不是
also
地球的
should
呢？
put forward the ideas of
然后
the
怎么避
you
免你这个
experiment, the
样品没有
design
受
of
到
your
地球大气
experiment.
境的污染
So
呢？
how did you
所以这个东西
avoid
其实
the
要做一
waste
个非
of
常
these 1
周全
milligrams
的
of the
考虑
Earth,
你将来
the
你
moon
的研
Earth
究成果才能被
the
国
moon
际的
sample?
学术界认可。
So
啊
you
所以
should
我觉得大
give a
家
full
慢慢期待
consideration
啊，所以
that
我觉得
every single
从
milligram of the usage of the moon sample is going to be taken to its fully roles. I think in the coming decades or in the coming 2 decades, there are so many different new scientific explorational methods is going to be appeared. Just as Apollo's sample, the Apollo 11's sample that we have taken 50 years ago, we are going to use it until today, and we are also going to pass the samples to the next generation. It is going to be, I believe that we have stored the samples that we have taken back in the Chigao Mountain in Hunan province. Another part of this sample is going to be exhibited in the National Museum of Beijing. I think that with the help of a telescope, you can observe that 0.5 milligrams of the samples of the moons. I believe last time in the Chinese Museum of Science and Technology, we have also given exhibitions of the samples of the moon. All of it is going to is going to be exhibited in the scientific and technology-related museum and also the National Observatory. Last time, I have touched the moon's sample. I think this is a very unique design where I can understand the color of the moon. I think that's a very wonderful experience where I really use my raw hand to get in touch with the samples of the moon. I think it's very slippery. I think the more we have understand the moon, the better it is going to help us with our scientific exploration journeys. It is going to educate the future generations for their future explorations. For our generation, I think I'm quite optimistic that we are going to reach the Mars. Today, I've been talking with Professor Zheng for so many different topics. As long as we are observing the night during the starry nights, we believe on the Mars, our Tianwen #1 rover is orbiting it. And also, if you are observing the moon, the Chang'e #1 has already finished its journey on the moon. This is a scientific journey never stops in the history of human beings. And even in the primary histories of the human beings, I believe there are so many different questions from us. Just as the name of Tianwen #1, heaven knows. I believe only heaven knows all of these wonders. This has brought us a lot of wonders of the universe. Just as we have mentioned, if you look into the moon, 15 years ago, 12 people have been landed on the moon. And if you are looking into the Mars, you will see that the Perseverance have already been landed there, while the Tianwen #1 is orbiting it. So it actually put all of ourselves in awe of the nature. The Mars is actually demonstrating a universe which is similar, but is also very strange from our day-to-day life. Compared with what I have observed in last October, 4 months later, nothing changed. But many things have changed this year and last year because of the COVID-19. I haven't seen my friends for many days. I'm looking forward when the COVID-19 pandemic has been finished, the battle has ended. We're going to meet up with all the dear friends once again to observe the same starry night. No matter all the dear viewers who's watching our live streaming, or all the different friends who's observing the starry nights, we could enjoy the same starry night. They are always there for you to observe. Finally, I also want to see that we have an interaction.
分别有祝融、星火和哪吒这3个名字是居在前面的，而且大家现在都可以在网络上进行投票，而投票的截止时间是在2月28号。I
think we should voting online about the final result of this surveys, and it's also going to be ended on the. There are 3 names to be selected. We can vote online. So, Professor Zheng, which one do you prefer? I prefer none of it. Of course, if one of the name is finally being selected, I have no objection to that. 祝融 is the god of fire in the ancient Chinese history. The Mars, although it's called the star of the fire in Chinese, but it has nothing to do with fire. The Mars has nothing related to the fire. You actually call it red star. I think a lot of you like Naja, but this is like a fairy tale on a figure in the legend. That is my impression toward Naja. And there are other different names. For example, the starry fire, and also the explorer called Dream. I actually prefer the name of Chu. So because we have called the moon explorer as Yu Tu, which is the jade white rabbit, and I also believe that our moon explorer is better to be called as red rabbit. I believe no matter from the color perspective, from the explorational mission's perspective, one is jade white rabbit, another is red rabbit, and from the legendary perspective, Chu Tu is a name for the legendary horse. I think I am supporting the name of Chu Tu. I believe that with more explorations like this one, we are going to have a better understanding, more lovers for the astronomical exploration. We are going to do a better job. And I also believe China is going to achieve better, and there's going to be more and more young people, young talents joining our mission. That's the reason I'm joining you on this live streaming. Thank you. We've been talking with Professor Zheng and researcher Zheng about the exploration towards Mars. By today, next time we are going to join hands with Professor Zheng once again on the journey of the Mars. Thank you.
好，各位。